Deep fear.
Chief!
Damn it, Mookie. You don't have to yell. I can hear you just fine.
April Fools!
April Fools?
Did you forget it's April Fool's Day?
Mookie, I don't have time for these fun and games.
Sorry, Chief. The mood around the big table had been kinda stuffy lately. So, I had to play a joke before going crazy.
Listen, why don't I come down to the Little Shark, and you can help me talk about Deep Fear on the Sega Saturn.
Yes, sir.
Please follow me below. Once again, I'm going to be talking about the great genre of survival horror. The great genre made famous by the likes of Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Alone in the Dark, and others.
You're slow, Chief. I didn't think you were that old.
Mookie, how is the Little Shark doing today?
Best conditions. Like the Yankees in '96. Why? What's up?
I'm telling everyone about survival horror.
Oh, yeah!
These games usually featured a third-person perspective, tank controls, monsters, a weapon system with limited ammo, and survival elements. There were a few successful attempts in the 90s to cash in on this type of game. One game that was overlooked by many gamers is Deep Fear on the Sega Saturn. This game was never released in North America. This was mostly due to the Saturn being on its last legs and not selling well in the US. I've heard some say that this was the last game released in Europe. I think it was a bad move not to release it in the States. I never even knew this game existed until I saw the interesting cover in my local import store when it was released. I was very surprised with what it turned out to be. Right off the bat, you notice the big difference in this game by its setting. Instead of fighting zombies in a house, zombies in the city, or monsters in a town dreamed up by your nightmarish delusions, you are facing weird mutated creatures underwater. Already, this was a big win for me. There is something really creepy about being stuck in a facility deep in the ocean and not being able to escape. It's actually a lot like the movie Alien, since outer space and the deep feel similarly secluded. This also reminded me of the few underwater movies I enjoyed, like Deep Star 6, Leviathan, and Cocoon. As a result, the game's biggest strength for me is its atmosphere.
And watch him close, do you hear me?
When you start the game up, the first thing that catches your interest is the great cutscenes. The cheesy, but lovable voice acting.
Oh, there's no problem with my CFOX system. No accident should have occurred. Oh!
And, of course, the great music by Kenji Kawai. The story itself is a decent horror plot. You play as John Mayer, an ex-Navy SEAL working for an emergency rescue team on board a research facility called the Big Table. The Big Table is a cool underwater facility conducting research and other types of secret covert operations. The game is actually quite extensive with the underwater world it created for itself. There are several big areas, they are explained quite well, and there is a lot of backstory baked into the game. So, what happens? Well, some weird radioactive virus comes down from space, deep in the Pacific Ocean, and messes everyone up. It's turning the crew of the Big Table into strange monsters, and you have to survive long enough to escape. Along the way, you try to save people and get tangled up in the complex story. I remember the voice acting in this game getting a bad reputation, but, come on. Resident Evil is almost as bad, but that's what made it so lovable. I honestly wouldn't like these games as much if they didn't have the cheesy voice acting.
Are you from a rescue team?
Yes.
I was hiding built there, a monster.
If you are a fan of this type of voice acting, like me, you're going to love this game. There are hours of it here.
I can hear water in the Sea Fox's torpedo room.
A torpedo will be launched in less than 10 seconds.
So, what about the characters? Well, in the first third of the game, you explore a few areas with your pal Mookie.
Okay, Mookie, let's slide on into home.
He's a lovable character that instantly stands out with his funky dialogue.
You mean we get to go in and check out the Navy's secret weapons with our own eyes?
Mookie follows you around, full of energy and excitement, yapping away at his mentor John. The player can feel the chemistry between Mookie and John.
Mookie, we have to go again.
What?
The light-hearted mood changes when you discover a sick crew member who transforms into a monster. This leads John and Mookie to embark on several quests to save the big table from disaster.
What's this?
This makes you feel a genuine loss when Mookie is, inevitably, killed by one of the monsters.
Okay.
A bit unexpected, so early in the game, and adds an element of uncertainty to the plot.
This is bad!
Mookie, don't worry, it was just in the video game.
Please, no! You saw how that guy turned into a monster.
It won't happen here. Now, let's continue.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. But on the condition that you give me my vacation 1 week earlier.
Okay, whatever you say, Mookie.
Mission accomplished.
I actually connected with many of the characters. They're all likable, especially Dubois, the engineer.
What's the matter, Dubois?
John, it's a facility check. I have this strange feeling.
That doesn't sound too good.
Oh, definitely. It's from the air unit area. It's howling at the top of its lungs.
I love this guy. There are other great characters like the angry Commander Clancy, who seems to act like this game's Albert Wesker.
Everyone on base, until instructions are given, do not make a sound. Stop all construction work. I repeat, do not make a sound. This is not a drill.
Danny, the foreman in the docking area, who acts as the selfless big brother.
Mookie, go return Little Shark before the area is shut off.
What? I told you there's a monster down there.
Didn't you say you just took care of it?
Okay, I'll go.
I'll go with you part way. Don't be scared.
Badass, Anna, who blows shit up with her dog, Rambo.
Do I look like a monster?
In a way, yes.
Rambo!
Even Anthony, the monkey.
Whoa, your boyfriend?
Then there's John's love interest, Dr. Weisberg. Gina is a mysterious figure at the big table. She reminds John of his late wife. There is a decent romantic chemistry between these two.
Okay, be careful.
John, thanks for everything.
You're welcome, Dr. Weisberg.
Call me Gina.
Okay, Gina.
The cast really pulls you into the world of this game. John Mayer himself is a deeply conflicted character. He feels personally responsible for his wife's death, and it's difficult for him to connect with other people. He eventually opens up to Dr. Weisberg and forgives himself for his past mistakes.
Stella was thrown out into the ocean. I tried to save her. There was nothing I could do. And only I survived. Colonel McCoy said nothing to me. That made it even worse. I couldn't handle the guilt, and I left the team.
Oh,
Even if I want to forget it, I can't.
it'll take time.
Not a bad little story. Gameplay-wise, it's a clone of Resident Evil and Silent Hill. You use tank controls, which means pressing up moves you forward and pressing down moves you backward. Many people complained about tank controls, but I think they are perfect for these types of games. Modern Resident Evil remakes have 3D control options, and I like them, but it feels weird when switching camera angles. It's never quite right.
You still remember that 1-week deal, right?
Anyway, the game follows the same basic formula as the others. You go to a room, the room loads, you find items, talk to characters, trigger cutscenes, have tasks you need to perform, fight monsters, and so on. There are boss fights, timed segments, and even the addition of new gameplay elements, like going for a walk on the ocean floor in a giant suit, or walking around in flooded rooms and using a harpoon. Come on, this is cool.
Oh yeah!
Many of the areas are low on oxygen because of the events that take place in the story. This forces you to constantly keep an eye on the oxygen levels in each room and look for an air system terminal whenever you can. At the air system terminals, you can refill the room air, refill your personal air tank, and save your game. You can also refill air in a room by using oxygen grenades. They refill the air slightly in a room, but it helps a bunch. Using your weapons depletes the oxygen faster, and enemies are tougher when oxygen is low. This adds some extra urgency to the gameplay. The oxygen in a room can hit critical levels very fast, especially in a room full of enemies. It can sometimes get tough, but you have plenty of healing items, and can usually find a refill if you run out. Next, let's talk about the battle system. Like Resident Evil, you equip a weapon then aim at your enemies and fire. The difference in this game is the ability to move while your weapon is drawn. It makes the fights easier in some ways but harder in others. It's definitely great to be able to walk backward while shooting, especially when enemies come close. It also allows you to run out of there quickly if need be. Unlike Resident Evil, you don't really collect any ammo in this game. Instead, you can only refill your ammo at a weapons storage room. This makes it important to remember where each storage room is located. You can also find new weapons in storage rooms, so it's good to visit and explore them. The only type of ammo you do collect are ammo capacity upgrades. They increase your overall capacity. The controls can be a little stiff at times and the enemies move a bit faster than your regular zombie, so it does take some getting used to. Graphically, the game has pre-rendered backgrounds that your 3D model runs through. The polygons can be a bit choppy at times, but overall look great.
I hurt my leg. I can't walk by myself.
There are moments of slight slowdown when there are too many polygons on screen. The monsters in this game have lots of variety. The standard types are human, with large tentacle claws for arms, or quick-moving, smaller types. Eventually, you fight tougher, bigger humanoids. But this virus seems to affect every creature in the big table. You fight large lizards, weird bug things, dairy cows, and more. The bosses look cool. Most of the time they resemble Tyrant and William Birkin from Resident Evil 2. I don't mind at all. There are a few jump scares in the game, but they work. Usually, you'll be walking down a familiar hallway, and some monster will fall from the ceiling. It is effective. There are segments of the game that are timed, like when you have to escape from the falling submarine, the Sea Fox. Right after you prevent a nuclear explosion, you have to extinguish a big fire, retrieve a respirator, find a harpoon, deactivate a launch sequence, and then navigate out of the submarine while it's upside down, finally escaping from a torpedo chute, all while you listen to Kenji Kawai's awesome score. Come on, this is really cool. Let's go back to the music for a second. The score in this game sounds like it was written for a movie. Very cinematic, atmospheric and grandiose. It goes along with the rest of the game. There is a bunch of dialogue, lots of cutscenes, and many areas that require music. The game is actually on 2 discs. It makes sense considering all the FMV. So, how does it end up? Well, along the way you find as many survivors as you can.
Everyone's dead from the strange disease. Hell, I might have caught it too.
There's a submarine at the hatch waiting for you.
You work with Dr. Weisberg and discover that you are immune to this virus because you have a cold. The virus cannot infect a host that already has an infection.
A solution!
Not necessarily. It just means that the parasite cell does not enter bodies infected with a virus.
Interesting. Eventually, you discover that this was a military experiment gone wrong. What did you expect? Yes, it's cliché, but it makes sense. Spoiler alert, most of your friends in the game turn into monsters that you either fight or kill in some way. Again, it's cliché, but it makes sense. So, you end up killing characters you spent time getting to know. Just like with Mookie, the death of your friends ups the stakes. You slowly realize that you're the only one who's going to get out of this. John desperately tries to find a way to save everyone. Meanwhile, characters like Dubois and Commander Clancy cling to their life's work here at the big table. I can't explain how much I enjoy these aspects of the story. The commander doesn't want to go down as a failure. The engineer doesn't want to see his life's work destroyed. These are relatable emotions. The game is pretty long. It's not easy to just run through it. There's plenty of backtracking, door opening, cutscene triggering, and monster killing. The enemies become more and more grotesque as you progress. They also get bigger and much tougher. Even though your ammo can be recharged easily, you have to survive your trip to the armory for the recharge. Breathable air also becomes less accessible, so you have to watch your air grenades and all the air systems as well. You take John through so many adventures in this facility. You put on diving suits, go through tubes, escape the place upside down, outrun self-destruct sequences, and so much more. Also, just like John's previous life, you begin to lose everyone important to you, either because of the virus or because of the monsters. You also prevent several catastrophic events to the big table while trying to get everyone to survive.
Have you come to save me?
Yes, but I have to return to the CCD area. For that, I need your torch.
Excuse me, but I can't trust you because you might be a monster.
You get between Danny and Anna's awkward romantic relationship.
If you see Anna, could you tell her that she doesn't need to act so macho? She's cute if she's quiet.
Tell her yourself.
You face your old colonel and resolve your old heartaches, closing a painful chapter of your life.
At the time of the accident, you probably tried all you could to save her.
Yes.
These 3 years, I needed to talk to you, but if I did, I would blame myself for letting you and Stella go.
Colonel McCoy.
People sacrifice themselves for you, and for each other. All the supporting character stories get resolved too. Danny stops the mutated Anna so you can escape. This scene is quite sad because Danny never really got a chance to tell her how he feels.
Anna, it's the first time you've ever come to me.
Toward the end, you spend a large portion of the game with Dubois, trying to trigger the self-destruct sequence and destroy the big table along with the monsters. This is extremely painful for Dubois. His life's work is in this place and he must destroy it. He sacrifices himself, but you must ultimately fight him. There's poor Sharon, who finally admits her romantic feelings for you, and then gets killed by a giant cow. What a poor way to go. You then release her pet dolphins into the wild to honor her memory.
Go! Or Sharon's life will be wasted!
Clancy finally exposes his true intentions, and then, he gets what he deserves. Finally, you run through the last part of the game, with Gina and Anthony, the monkey. Let's talk about Anthony for a second. This monkey has been around since the start of the game. It always feels a bit strange having him around. There's good reason for this. You find out that Anthony is the reason behind all this madness. He was sent into space and brought back some shit with him. This becomes the ultimate betrayal. Gina was keeping secrets from me this whole time.
Stop!
I understand how you feel, but he can't be allowed to live or taken back to land.
Stop, John.
She reveals herself as the ultimate monster and absorbs Anthony into herself. This leads to the final boss battle. This is a weird fight because it's more extraterrestrial than chemical. But I like it. Gina ultimately redeems herself and apologizes. Once you defeat her, you make your escape. The ending is exactly what you'd expect from this game. Now that you've lost everyone and resolved all your issues, John makes it to the surface, a new man. Having learned from all the loss and tragedy of his life, he is now ready to face the light and come out from deep within the sea again. This game has some really deep underlining themes. All the major characters in this underground facility have been hiding or running away from their pasts. A complex group of deeply relatable characters, all forced to face their deepest fears. Maybe this is what the developers were implying. A human story, dealing with complex emotions and terrifying monsters. Did they accomplish their goal? I guess so. I mean, the game isn't particularly scary. You will have a few jump scares because they constantly drop enemies out of nowhere. But it's more of a sci-fi drama to me. I really like this game. With all the remakes and sequels we have had in the last 2 decades, you would think someone would remake this game. Regardless of whether the voice acting is cheesy, the writing was decent. There was certainly enough for potential sequels here. This was a big missed opportunity by Sega of America. I think Deep Fear would have been a successful game in the US, considering the popularity of survival horror at the time. It could have even led to a sequel on the Dreamcast. Although, the Dreamcast had a few strange and lovable survival horror games of its own. I think there is a huge market for Deep Fear. It's certainly one of my top 10 Saturn games of all time. I often revisit this game. It's fun, it's a product of the era, it has all the elements that get me going, and it's fun and campy. Sure, it's full of sometimes sluggish controls, weird graphics and strange characters, but that's part of the charm. Without a doubt, some of the best shit I have ever played.
Let's make a deal.
A deal?
You want this torch, I'll give it you. In return, give me something I can use.
I don't have any money.
Oh no, not money.